I'm super excited to welcome David Spark, the producer of the CISO Series podcast, who is now going to host an awesome live show. David, come on on stage and put your hands together for David, please.
Thank you very much. All right, we have done a lot of last minute switching, and we are going to go live hard, hopefully in 2 minutes. Come on, all the guests right now, who my guests are Scott Slater, the VP of Practice Management and Consulting for Fidelity Investments. Also, right after him is Joshua Motta, who is the co-founder and CEO of Coalition. And also, right here, literally within the last, 4 or 5 minutes, a replacement for DJ Sampath. It is Emilio Escobar, who is the CISO over at Databricks. Okay, so not Databricks, Datadog. This is the problem. You come in last second, you're not on my sheet here. All right, we are very close to going. As you can see from these screens up above, we have a chat room, and if you want to participate in that, here, let me grab this. If you don't know what the Wi-Fi code is here, this is it. Right here, if you can all read this, MS Event 586TH, right here, connected to the MSFT guest Wi-Fi. That is the Wi-Fi. I'll move it back to you. I don't know if everyone can see it. Oh, actually, if I do it like, whoops, maybe everybody can see it that way. And I'll move that because I know the camera's not enjoying that right now. What you can do is you can get on the Crowdcast app if you have an iPhone. If you have a computer, you can just jump onto Crowdcast. It's crowdcast.io, CRODCAST.io, crowdcast.io/CISO Series, and you can participate and join in the chat room, which is half the fun of this show. I will leave that here for just a minute. How much time do we have before we're going live? We have probably less than 60 seconds. 10 seconds? All right, we'll just do this. You all ready? It's going to be good advice. All right. I'm keeping an eye on you. All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome. We're going to start off with just a little good advice, bad advice, and worse advice. I'm going to start with you, Scott. Give me some good advice on dealing with the economics of email fraud.
Well, recognize there's a problem to begin with and do something about it.
Oh. All right. Whoops. Hello, everybody. Welcome. We're going to start off with just a little you have to hit that bad advice and worse advice. You have to hit the sound on that. Mute the sound on that. There we go. It's muted. Excellent. Great. All right. As we would say, Josh, please give us some bad advice on dealing with the economics of email fraud.
Some bad advice. I mean, well, we got to roll back all of our Microsoft Exchange servers to, the year 2016.
That would be some bad advice. All right, I'm with you on that. All right, and now you got to top that. Emilio, give me some worse advice on dealing with the economics of email fraud.
DLP everything.
DLP everything?
Everything.
That's not going to help.
Ready? It's Super Cyber Friday.
All right, everybody, welcome to Super Cyber Friday. Our topic today is the hacking economics of email fraud, and an hour of critical thinking on how InfoSec professionals should manage the financial impact on their business. Our sponsor for today's episode is ArmorBlock. So a huge thanks for ArmorBlock. You can give it up for them. Come on, let's hear it. Thank you very much. All right. Joining me on this stage right here is, to my immediate left, this is Scott Slater, who is the VP of Practice Management and Consulting for Fidelity Investments. Also to his left is Josh Motta, who's a co-founder and CEO of Coalition. And lastly, Emilio Escobar, who is the CISO of Datadog. Thank you very much. As I mentioned, ArmorBlocks is our sponsor. Thank you very much, ArmorBlocks. All right, there are a number of ways that you can participate. Now, we have a live audience here in front of us here. Make some noise so everyone knows there is an actual audience here. All right. And you can participate by joining in the chat room, which you'll see that's happening already. You can ask a question. You can vote on a question. You can vote in the polls. You can vote up the questions as well. Please get engaged. Please participate. Those of you here in the room, you can do that, or watching us online. If you are seeing the stream right now and you are not on Crowdcast, please go to Crowdcast right now at crowdcast.io/CISO Series and join us live so you can participate. So you may be seeing us on LinkedIn or YouTube or also on Twitter. If you're there, don't be there because you're not being part of the fun. Come on over to chat on Crowdcast. All right. Let me just explain how the show is going to go. At the very beginning, we did our cold open, good advice, bad advice, worse advice. Also, in addition, we are going to, after that, ask for your bad ideas on how to deal with email fraud. And then in addition, after that, we also want your good advice, just your 10% better tip. So make sure you label your bad ideas, bad idea, and your good advice, 10% as well. So worst way to manage email threats, that's the bad idea one would hear. We're going to play a game called the Public Interest. Everybody in this room can play, as well as my guests here as well, and those watching online. We will put a poll live for the worst way to manage email threats, and we will also play the Department of Yes after that, and then we'll have a vote for how do we make it 10% better. And our top 2 worst idea contenders will face off, and 3 of my guests here will have to determine who truly has the worst ideas. And then we'll have our last questions and final advice, and we'll wrap this whole show up as well. Lastly, I want to mention, if you are watching this online, there's a button at the bottom of the screen that says Join the Finals, June 17th, 2022, for Capture the CISO. You can click that button at any time during this and register for our event that's going to be happening on June 17th. It's the final show of our new show called Capture the CISO, which is a ton of fun, and you'll want to be there. All right. With that being said, let's get to our first question, and I appreciate everyone joining us here. All right. I will start with you, Scott. How does the cyber team determine what is their riskiest digital communications, like which is the most potent? Is it business email compromise? Is it phishing, impersonation, smishing? Like, how do you determine that? And does that determination then sort of lead your economic discussion?
Well, we're in a situation where we're providing, at Fidelity Investments, we're a custodial business first and foremost. So it's our end clients that we're concerned about. And frankly, a lot of them are emerging businesses that are smaller and don't really grasp the nature of the risks they're facing. In fact, one interesting statistic from one of our trade providers is Cerulli Associates says that over 80% of firms think that they are well prepared for a cyber attack. And these are small firms with as few as 5 to 10 to 25 people. So clearly they're not, and everybody reacts that way, but that's where they think it's there. So I think really recognizing that there's a problem is a pretty critical issue.
But that's a super common problem, and I'll throw it to either you, Josh, or Emilio, is it's amazing the people who know more that's going on have a lower opinion of how well the risk is, and the people who don't know what the heck's going on have a higher opinion of how their risk is. Do you find this sort of to be consistent, Josh?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, as a provider of cyber insurance, we have the unfortunate need to pay the actual losses. Mm-hmm. And I can definitely tell you that we have paid tens of millions in losses for phishing, business email compromise. In fact, business email compromise is the most frequent claim that we receive. Yeah. So I'm particularly pessimistic about most firms' security.
All right. And Emilio, but have you seen the situation? Because you've worked, let me ask, have you worked in environments that were really savvy and not so savvy, kind of run the gamut? And did you find the ones that were maybe not so savvy thought things were going well, or maybe because they brought you in, they were like, no, we need help?
Yeah, I think there's a tendency to be overconfident in controls if you're working security, probably because you think about it too much, right. and you sort of get used to it, right? So it's like being an EMT, getting called for a 911 call doesn't get your heart rate going as much as if you're the neighbor from the person who's getting the ambulance come in, your heart rate is going. So I think there's some similarities there. So yes.
All right. I want to also reiterate, we love questions from our audience. Those questions come from anyone in here. And heck, we do have an extra microphone, so we can pass that around if we need to do that. So if you do have a question here, you want to do that, or if you just want to type it in, there's an Ask a Question button at the bottom of the screen here. You can go ahead and click on that and just put your question in right there. So don't hesitate. I will try to look to my right behind my back, or someone here will point to me that there's someone raising their hand behind my back as well. So I want to actually get to the issue of insurance. I've mentioned this before. Nick Ryan, who runs security at an accounting firm called Baker Tilly, said to me that he's actually very bullish on the cyber insurance industry for kind of leading the way for all of us to improve our security because, and I've heard this, and I'm sure you can give me better stats on this, something like 30 to at least 30% of cyber insurance requests or requests to get coverage are being rejected just because basic security or security foundations are just not there. Are you seeing this?
Absolutely seeing it.
So give me the better results than what I'm saying.
Yeah, so look, after the surge in ransomware, starting in the fourth quarter of 2020, many insurance companies are now requiring controls that many of us in this room would think are basic, like MFA. You will not get coverage from many insurance companies unless you legally attest to using multi-factor authentication. And so the industry is taking up the proper role and driving the right financial incentives to improve hygiene for all.
What's been your experience with cyber insurance, Emilio?
So I agree. I think the push for better security through these requirements, right, for better coverage, or they increase your premium, I think is causing a good cause or a good effect. I think my experience has been more on the other side, where what if you already have these controls, or you work in a cloud environment? I think the industry isn't necessarily there from an insurance standpoint yet.
One of the things that
We are their insurance company, by the way.
That's great. But let me, and this was something that Nick brought up in this conversation. This, again, the head of security over at Baker Tilly. And I don't even know if you've got this set up, and let me know if you do. He envisioned, really insurance pushing it like, all right, we can give you this coverage if you have this level. But like with all insurance, but if you have this, this, and this, you can lower your premiums this much. And if you have this and this, you can lower this much. Do you have kind of a stepped system like that?
There is a bit of a step system, but I think a lot of people get the math of insurance wrong, which is to say we're amortizing the cost of loss across hundreds of thousands of businesses.
Right.
So that one particular business takes an action actually doesn't allow us to reduce the price by that much. So the most effective tool we have is just whether you can get insurance or not, whether you can renew your policy or not. I think where the real magic is coming with cyber insurance is that it's not a once a year thing. It's happening all the time. And so we tell our customers, hey, you've opened up remote desktop on the public internet. You've left an S3 bucket open, these sorts of things. And that's happening in close to real time in the middle of the policy period as the risk is changing.
Scott, what are the variables that maybe a lot of organizations are not thinking about when they're thinking about, I guess, cyber threats via email, and how is that connecting to the financial issue?
Well, on the financial side, first of all, the issue that our clients are most concerned about and that we pay the most attention to is obviously fraudulent money movement. That's that
so
business email compromises.
So literally the most direct way of losing money.
Right, and quite honestly, for our clients, they're working with very high net worth clients who are often very highly visible individuals. So they're really focused on, are we going to be able to prevent that money movement? But I think to a large extent, as you both have outlined here, they don't really understand the nature of the risk. We're dealing with smaller enterprises who don't have a technology background, who even when we're, for instance, introducing them to armor blocks, they all of a sudden have to get their managed service provider involved. They have to get somebody who's technically more proficient to understand the nature of the problem. So that's why I say from the very beginning, it really begins with understanding the risks that you're dealing with, and it is much more severe, and they recognize it once it's happened, but that's why it's important to get ahead of it.
I want to get back to something you said, Josh, about renewing. Why do people lose insurance on renewals?
Look, people can lose insurance and renewals if they have a claim, as an example, although ironically, many times a policyholder is in a better state after you've helped them through a claim than they were before. They can lose it because they haven't implemented a particular control. That's probably the most common.
And are you doing the compliance checks, or are you going through an outside audit? How's that being handled?
So most insurance companies have the policyholder, the company, fill out an application, and they're making legal attestations, and they take their word. In our case, we're also doing outside-in scanning of the infrastructure of our customers, and doing it all the time on a continuous basis.
I know, Emilio, that so much of the talk of cybersecurity is, connecting with the business. I'm going to take it one step further. Your security team at Datadog, how connected are they in understanding the financial impact of what they're doing?
That's a good question. I don't think I don't think security will ever be as connected to that problem, which is why I ask my teams to just rely on the expertise of the people who are, right? So we talk to the finance team, we talk to the procurement team, we talk to all the teams that...
Well, I'm not saying they have to be accountants,
Yeah.
but do they understand their job is, a critical cog in the machine?
They understand the critical cog in the machine. I don't think they understand necessarily the economics of it yet.
But I wonder, would that change anything? Do you think? I mean, they're there to just do their job as best as they can. I don't think if you say, well, it's actually going to be X millions of dollars versus this amount of money, I don't think it would change their job, would it? No, it wouldn't change their behavior.
No, I agree. No, it wouldn't.
All right, we're just about a couple minutes. Actually, you know what? Let's go, Andrew.
It's time to play a brand new game.
So I have to qualify, it's not that brand new. It's a game called The Public Interest. We just didn't come up with the new music for it as well. And because I'm on a delay here, so it's going to be a while before I actually see what the first question is. But hopefully Andrew's got it popped up here as well. So this is a simple game here. It's really fun, and everyone can play along. And the way the public interest works is you're going to have two phrases that are searched online. And I'm going to do also surveys from the audience as well. If you haven't gone to the first one, make sure you're gone to the first one, Andrew, so I can do this. You just have to determine which term gets searched more often. So do we have our first one up yet? I'm just on the delay. It's coming. Where is it? I don't even know what it is yet.
Maybe DLP blocked it.
Do you think DLP, was he, do you see it? Oh, here we go. We got the first one. All right. Most average monthly search queries. Do you think it's fake email or phishing? Let's quickly. Fake email or phishing?
Phishing.
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 All right. How many, show of hands, how many fake email? How many think it's phishing? Most people think it's phishing, and it is, hopefully. As I say, just tell me, is it A or B, Andrew? One or two, show me. B? Oh, it is phishing. All right. I'm unfortunately on a delay here. Everyone else is going to figure it out. All right. Next one. Make sure you go to, yes, it's over 40,000. Next one. Let's see what it is. E. Swing and a miss. Unfortunately, Valerie got it wrong. We'll do it. Oh, by the way, nobody's asked questions. Get in there and ask questions, everyone in the chat room. All right. Business email compromise or smishing, which gets more?
C, business email compromise.
Business email compromise? What?
I'm going to go with the same.
Business email compromise? Definitely. How many think BEC? BEC, most. How many think it's smishing? No one thinks, oh wait, one person thinks it's smishing. What is it? Oh no, two. What is it, Andrew? It's two. It is smishing. It is smishing. You all lose except you and DJ. All right. So we'll see. Yeah, it's considerably more, in fact. Wow. All right. The next one is going to be, and that's a surprise since that's the majority of what you're getting hit. But that's when people are searching.
I think 100 of those are me searching.
Email compromise is. I'll go to, if you haven't gone to the next one, go. All right. Here's a good one for you. Cyber insurance or cyber risk? What do you think it is?
I'm hoping it's cyber insurance.
Yeah, for your business, you definitely hope. What do you think?
I'm going to be the contrarian here. Go with cyber risk.
Cyber risk.
Cyber risk. Okay, one, cyber insurance. Two, cyber risk. Cyber insurance. One, okay. Cyber risk. Everybody else? All right, what is it? It's one. It is cyber insurance. All right. Good job.
Guess I'm in the right industry.
But you know what? You are...
By a lot.
We've had cyber risk a longer time than we've had cyber insurance. You're essentially the new blood in town. All right, are we at the next one now? All right, I think we have a total of four. Are we on the fourth one now? Yeah, we're on the fourth one. All right, risk avoidance or risk mitigation? What do you think it is?
Mitigation.
Mitigation.
Avoidance.
Avoidance. Okay, two mitigations, avoidance. How many think it's avoidance? Okay, we got 7. Mitigation. Everybody else? All right. What is it, Andrew? It is mitigation. Congrats to everybody who got mitigation. Good job. All right, now I did not keep track. Do you know how many you got there?
2.
2?
2?
2 and?
I think you got insurance.
2 or 3.
Yeah.
There's only 2 people who've gotten 4 because it was you, DJ. You got the one that was smishing. How many did you get? You get all 4? All right. Okay, we're back. All right. We are, by the way, for the people who've gotten bad ideas, do we have enough bad ideas that have come in, Andrew? No? We've only got 5 bad ideas. What's wrong with you people? More bad ideas. And any good ideas that have come in at all? None. We need some good ideas. This is a thing that happens on our show constantly. We always have like a 3 to 4-fold number of bad ideas to good ideas. So our community has figured out to come up with plenty of bad ideas to handle something, but not enough good ideas. So IoT toilets, Tyson, good job. And Dutch with all inbound email is black-holed. Anything that's important, they can just fax it. That's not a bad one. And by the way, stand up there, Dutch there. He's actually wearing a Super Cyber Friday shirt that he made himself. That's a DIY Super Cyber Friday shirt. I appreciate that. That is actually not even our logo. All right, let's get back to it. No questions. Questions, get them in.
Sounds like a trademark problem.
By the way, bad idea. Omit any ideas that complies with NIST, ISO, OWASP, etc. Good idea. Good job, Victoria. I like that. All right, let me ask you, Josh. What are the questions you What are the questions you wish potential customers came to you to ask that they don't?
What to do if something goes wrong, right? They're just rarely, as we've mentioned, they're almost never prepared.
Are you, for the ones that are prepared, do they call you in for tabletop exercises?
They do.
Good.
They do. I think like a well-prepared organization knows that the cyber insurance provider has the resources to help them, and they know to call them. I mean, right now, most businesses, they're trained to call 911 if they're the victim of a crime. I imagine that being like an outtake of that Zoolander film, you know, like the cops show up and put a couple bullets through the MacBook and the criminals are in the computer.
By the way, are you reassuring? Do you talk them down when the things happen?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, every day, a big part of our team works with businesses on their worst day.
Oh, yeah. Have you done tabletop with their company?
So I gotta say, I think there's at least from my experience, a general opinion to not include your insurance provider during tabletop.
Really? Why is that?
Because there's a business transaction behind it, right? So they benefit.
See how the sausage is being
right.
made. Right.
Yeah.
So when would you communicate how you want to engage with them, if not through the tabletop exercise? Which my feeling is that's fine.
Right.
But you need to somehow communicate how you want them to engage with you.
So we establish those guidelines without having to be part of a tabletop exercise, right? So we know, okay, that when this happens, we'll reach out this way, but then we take care of everything else ourselves.
Okay. And I also just realized we're not going to have a back channel, so there's a lot of stuff Andrew's going to need to communicate. Hey, everybody, if you have not gotten your bad ideas in, guess what? Too late to get in the poll. So Andrew, make sure you get that poll up for the bad ideas. I want everybody who's connected to vote on the poll the second it goes up. I'll see it in just a second when it's there. By the way, what's your experience with working with insurance companies with the work that you're doing?
Well, it's interesting because a lot of the work that we've been doing for the last number of years with these independent wealth managers, these registered investment advisors, is trying to help them grow. Now we're starting to deal with risk issues, so Armor Blocks has been a key piece of that to try to help with preventing some of the issues that they're facing with money movement fraud. But we've also added in now, a requirement around insurance coverage just this year, so that in addition to...
So have you declined clients because they just don't have the coverage too, because it's a requirement?
It is now a requirement, so every firm that is on our Fidelity platform for custody does have to have that coverage now. We're just in the middle of rolling out that policy.
It's all become table stakes now for the industry.
It is.
Like, if you literally want to be running a business, you have to be doing this.
Yes, it is. I mean, and again, I go back to that stat I mentioned before. Most of these firms, they're emerging, they're growing, they're focused on those things. They're not paying attention to a large extent to the extent of the risks that they're facing until they experience it, and that's why I think that's there.
All right. Well, so you're working directly with Armor Blocks on this?
We are working with Armor Blocks directly and providing them as a third-party relationship that we have, where we're working with our advisors, again, with thousands of advisors out there.
We don't have an Armor Blocks rep on the stage. DJ actually sacrificed his position for Emilio here, but I want you to explain how you actually work with Armor Blocks in this capacity. Explain.
To a large extent, like we do with many other capabilities that we bring to our clients, we're introducing them to the nature of the risk. Right? And I would think a big part of it, as I said, a lot of them don't understand the nature of the risk. We're trying to educate them on the nature of the risk, and that they really are facing fraudulent money movement issues through business email compromise largely. The other part that we're learning from it, from the clients we have, is it's not just about business email compromise, it's also about credential phishing and going after the reputational risk that firms may face because they're going after their clients' names through senior executives.
Okay. I got this great question that just came in, actually from Tyson, who is sitting right there in the corner right there, and this is definitely for you, Josh, and that is, what future things do insurance underwriters think about?
What future things? I mean, look, anything that's causing loss are things that we think about. It turns out that those things are the same things we've been thinking about for the past decade. And so we're here talking about email security. Email is still by far the largest attack surface for any business. It's the most exploited attack surface. And so the three top claims that we receive, the first is business email compromise. The second is what we call funds transfer fraud, which is often perpetrated via the email compromise of a third party or some form of social engineering. And then the third is ransomware, which can involve an email component or is very often remote network access on the public internet, like that open port.
I also have to assume, and this is my neophyte view of it, is because ransomware seems to be growing and changing at such ludicrous paces, and nothing seems normal to me. What does an actuarial table look like from ransomware? It can't have like the consistency of any other normal insurance we know of, like, housing insurance and auto insurance like that. Like, what the heck does that thing look like?
Well, so the challenge in the insurance industry is you have to determine your price today, but you don't know what your cost of goods is until a year or more later. And that's what's happened. Like, cyber insurance was underpriced over the past 18 months. And now the piper is coming home. That's the challenge. But the real fear of, like, what are underwriters thinking about, what are actuaries thinking about, is not any individual loss of a company, like those the industry can weather. It's the proverbial cyber hurricane, right? Where lots of companies file claims simultaneously.
Have you had something like that yet?
So far, it hasn't happened, right? But every time someone says Log4j or SolarWinds or whatnot, the sky seems to fall in the cyber insurance industry. But that's the real fear, and that's the unknown. And there are reinsurers that literally believe that 60% of the world's computers can go offline at the same time. And that's a 1 in a 5.5 year event. That makes it very difficult to offer cyber insurance if you believe that's the case. And so that's where a lot of the thought is going in right now.
All right, we have our poll is up. It looks like there's a good dozen bad ideas that are in, and there's two that are definitely trending hard. Andrew, I think you're going to end up having to just shout out who these people are because there's no other way you're going to be able to communicate this to me, but you'll do it in a second. So that's going to close, just in about 5 minutes, or not close, but I'll know in about 5 minutes. So get your votes in right now as well. Let me throw this to you, Emilio. Let's just talk about business email compromise, which, I mean, just quick answer here, Josh. What percentage of your issues is BEC?
I mean, BEC is probably about 30% of all
30%,
claims.
okay. 30% of all claims, so a good third. That is got to be a big issue. How are you managing, let's just say, how are you managing that differently today than you were maybe a couple of years ago?
I think for the big difference for us today is the number of third parties that we have to interact with, right? So especially if you're a growing business where you're getting new customers, partners, right, vendors, because I think where I've seen BEC be more of an impact for a growth company is, if you have certain maturity level, is the third party getting compromised, and then you lose money through that, right? So that's happened, and I've had to deal with that before. So that's been the biggest change. I think before it was like, how do we protect our own email infrastructure? And it slowly moved to like, let's just move it to the cloud. Certain things are done for us. Let's put MFA in front of it. Now it's like, wait a minute. What happens to everyone that we have to email with? How do we know it's actually somebody that we trust?
Scott, I want to ask a question that I was asking Josh earlier, which was, what are the questions your customers are not asking you that they should be?
Well, first, from what Emilio just said, we do see that same thing around the nature of these targeted attacks, that they're coming from the outside, and they're used to it. It's a familiar individual. They don't recognize the domain's been compromised. They don't recognize a slight change in the email address. They're comfortable with it. They're in a hurry, so they execute on it and then realize that something went wrong with that.
Essentially, the classic email compromise.
It is a classic email compromise, but but it's accelerating in this space. So
right, and the thing is, we are all susceptible to it because we are just working at lightning speed. I mean, it's happening very fast. But I'm sorry, going back to the question I had is, what are the questions they should be asking that they're not?
They should be asking, it is what I have in terms of security. In other words, they're trusting their native security alone, and a lot of times those are capturing that. We're finding this even in the conversations that we have with them with armor blocks, is they don't necessarily understand the difference between what is this native language AI-driven solution versus what they're capturing. And what they find after they get it on board and we implement it is that there's an awful lot of stuff that was uncovered, emails that are uncovered that are problematic, that were missed by their existing solutions. So I think understanding what are the different solutions, why is what I have probably insufficient for the kinds of risks that I'm facing, and I would probably say the biggest question is really is do I understand the kind of risks that my industry faces? Because for some of these firms, a serious breach could be almost existential in terms of what it does to the firm.
We are just, how far are we? Okay, just 1 minute. Okay, let me quickly ask both of you, after business email compromise, what's the next biggest issue?
I'll take that.
You mean after it happens?
No,
or what's the next
after
biggest?
in terms of like, you said 30% of the problem.
Sorry.
So what's the next?
Social engineering, funds transfer fraud.
Just funds transfer fraud.
Yeah, no email's been compromised, or maybe the email of a third party was compromised, and that was used to defraud the company.
All right.
Everything is around money, as was mentioned, and industries are targeted. So believe it or not, title companies are some of the riskiest companies, and these are really small businesses. But surprise, surprise, they're in the middle of a very complex and expensive transaction.
It's interesting. I just purchased a house, and my agent knew the woman at the escrow, but I wanted to make sure she did. I literally had to have a video call with my agent escrow and just make sure, do you know this person? Like, we were like, that was the way I verified
God bless.
this transfer.
And that's what they don't do. I mean, everyone should have an out-of-band method for verifying wire instructions.
And it was all it was literally a 2-minute call. Does everyone know each other here?
Yeah.
And it was like, okay, we can make this
And you're
happen.
lucky. There's many business owners that we've literally wired their life savings away to a criminal. It's tragic.
All right. So social engineering number 2 for you?
I think so. Either, typos in the domains that are not very noticeable, right? Like to your point, we're moving at lightning speed, so people can fall for these types of attacks.
All right. We are going to play this.
Hello, welcome to the Department of Yes, where no request is ever rejected.
All right, we have a lot of bad ideas. Hold it, the poll. Oh no, here's the poll. All right, this first one that's got 10 votes. I'm actually going to argue it's not that horrible an idea. Who did this one? The 10 votes. Valerie. This is Valerie. All right, Valerie Apperson, who submitted this one. All right, I'm going to throw this to you, Emilio. Again, you're playing the Department of Yes. You have to argue why you wanted to take on Valerie's incredibly stupid, horrible idea. Forward all suspicious emails to everyone in the company so they can see an example of one. So this is not just you're forwarding it to the security department. Everyone gets to see this and could potentially accidentally act on it. Why do you actually want to do this?
You instill a culture of transparency that way, right?
I agree. Can we get a reaction? Okay, there we go. That's good. All right. I agree. That is a good reason. All right, I'm going to throw it to you. Why do you think this is a good idea, Scott?
I think largely because that way you understand what's going on across the company, and it really does. You won't repeat it after that.
Yes. All right. There we go. Yes. Hey! It is a good idea to do it this way because everyone gets to see what's going. Just hopefully you're not magnifying the problem that just came in. That's our hope. All right, Valerie, very good. All right, this is a good one too. The carrier pigeons one. Who's that, Andrew? Who is it? Hadas, who's been a guest with us before. She's a CISO over at M1. All right, this one, I'm going to throw this one to you, Josh. Transfer all email communications to well-trained carrier pigeons. I'm going to say, I don't know if you're going to lose a lot of business, but I don't think you're going to get a lot of business email compromise if all email communications go to carrier pigeons. What do you think?
I think it's keeping up the employment rate of carrier pigeons.
Yes, all right, we'll give that. All right. Yeah! Good job. Yes, actually. And what do you think? Why do you want to do this?
What is it? RFC 1186, right? Carrier pigeons. So the good thing is that you can't reply all.
Oh, yes, all right. Give it the winner one. Give him the winner for that. You have that one? Andrew, there we go.
We've got a winner.
That goes to Emilio. You win, Emilio. Congrats on that. Did we get any good ideas, Andrew? Thumbs up or thumbs down? We got maybe a couple. All right. We're going to drop those in a few minutes. All right. So what we'll do is, in what time will you got? Okay, in about 7 minutes, we'll try to get out both Hadass and Valerie on. You think we can get them both on? Check. What do you think? It's looking good? You can't tell. Who knows? Chat with them and see if we'll be able to get them on, and they'll defend their horrible ideas, which, by the way, sufficiently awful. So good job on them. And we'll also get our good ideas in as well. All right. Let me ask you, Emilio, you're working with your team, you're trying to connect them more to the business to understand like the flow of communications going on. Where have you seen the biggest hiccup be that either your team doesn't get or the staff doesn't get?
I think for us, the biggest hiccup has been more on the product engineering side, where my team will make recommendations that don't necessarily consider the trade-offs that come with the design of that, because we don't understand the systems as well as product engineering does.
Okay.
The biggest alignment has been also with product engineering when we actually approach it with, we don't know anything, you tell us, and that aligns pretty well.
Scott, what do you think is going to, it seems this problem is constantly getting ahead of us in terms of how bad it's becoming. There's more vectors, more people falling victim. By the way, the same techniques being used over and over and over and over again. What do you think would turn things around for your clients better? So this would, I guess, have less of a negative impact.
You know, in our first session today, one of the things that was discussed was the idea of establishing a benchmark. I do actually think that could really improve stuff. One of the things we're seeing in our industry, for instance, is the SEC is actually considering regulation around, and I think those kind of elements will A, bring visibility to it, but B, I think will also establish a standard that I think will address some of the things that you're talking about too. Right now, it's just that's what's missing is a grasp of that.
Are either of you involved in any of that lobbying with the SEC at all? Yes, no, your companies?
I mean, we're absolutely involved with government. We participated in President Biden's cybersecurity summit and the National Security Council to try and increase the hygiene of most businesses. But it's challenging, and sometimes they just have to experience a loss. I mean, what's so frustrating, particularly around funds transfer fraud, social engineering, is a very simple and free control would fix it, which is just confirm the instructions you received through a separate communications channel. Like pick up the phone. Like there's literally zero cost.
Well, let me ask you.
But I would say that actually is a standard that's been in our industry forever.
Right.
And so you would eliminate the entire problem if people would actually do that. But inevitably, there's one person in the firm that is in a hurry, like you were talking about. They fail to make that phone call to confirm, or they click on the wrong number on the email, which has been compromised. Those kind of things.
Then let me ask this. Could there be a new security control that when people get in a hurry, it prevents it from even happening? I mean, and this may be, it's not here, I wish this existed kind of a thing.
I mean, I don't know about new, but I mean, even what we're doing with armor blocks, the fact that those alerts come up and they're not generic alerts, they're specific to what is the concern in this that goes to whoever's receiving it, not to mention it goes to I think those make a huge difference, which is why we're such advocates for this.
More alerts letting like, you know, what you're doing here, kind of a thing, like pause. You know what do we say? Steve Prentice, who's one of our reporters, and I don't think this is his term, but he said, create the gap. The idea is there should be a gap moment between receiving the communication and the final action, and that gap moment should not be controlled by that initial communication. So the idea is I get a message in saying, hey, here's wiring instructions for so-and-so. I shouldn't take it from that to then the action, but rather, okay, I have that knowledge, I know what the action is. What do I do separate from that to cause that action to happen, to essentially, all right, assuming I don't have that information, what is the information I got? Have you done that sort of create the gap, if you will?
That's a good question. I think via awareness you can. There's no technical control right now, right? So, I know they're like Armor Blocks, right? They're trying to understand the language of the intent of the message, which I think is great. The problem every time you create a gap also is you have to address the psychology of the person receiving it, right? Which might not always be a positive reaction. So it's a balance game that you have to play.
All right, we have some more questions that come in. Oh, Chris, who's here? Where's Chris, who's wearing really the most fabulous outfit here. He's best dressed person here. All right, he asks right here, risk quantification is a big topic at RSA this year. Are customers able to lower their premiums if they're able to, and this goes back to my earlier question, if they're able to financially demonstrate better risk posture through risk quantification? So if I show you how well I'm quantifying risk, will you go, well, yes, we'll give you a lower premium? Like, is that even possible?
It's possible, but I think people, especially people in the security industry, put a lot more stock behind it. And it goes back to that math equation I laid out, which is we're charging insurance based on the losses we see across all the businesses we insure. And so any one business is paying for a fraction of it. So if only one business, and mind you, we have over 140,000 customers, if one business implements one control, how much does that really, how much can we discount your policy? Like, it's not going to be meaningful typically compared to how expensive oftentimes that control is to implement in the first place. I think as a psychological measure, it's important. And I think at scale, like as we think about across a portfolio, if we can get lots of businesses to adopt a control, then we can start to reduce rates as a whole across all of them. There is a concept, but it's like just like the safe driver discount. He was asking, is there a concept of a safe driver discount? There is. It's really like a psychological benefit more than anything, and so we do offer it. But what we prefer to do is give you more coverage, and so that's where I think we get more leverage. The other thing that we do in particular is you have a deductible.
And by the way, do clients respond to that? More coverage than lower cost?
Clients respond to that. They want more coverage. The other thing is you have deductible on the policy. Well, if you implement certain controls, we'll actually cut your deductible in half, which is oftentimes more valuable than the cost of the policy itself.
That's huge.
That's huge. That's where you
Can I add something? Sorry.
Sure, go ahead.
I hope that if you're quantifying risk, you already have the basic hygiene controls implemented already, right? Otherwise, I think you're prioritizing.
Yes, yes. Don't put the cart before the horse. Andrew, are we good with Hadass and Valerie? No, not at all. So we're scrapping that. Okay, no big deal. All right, Dutch, who has a question right here. Dutch Schwartz with AWS. What measuring and metrics would you recommend the SEC use? I will ask you. What would you like them to know that's going on that they may not know, or you would like customers to feed to them so they can make better decisions themselves?
Well, I think for us, a lot of this is still very much in development as we're thinking it through. But again, I think what we want to know is I think what the SEC would probably want to know is the number of breaches that a firm is facing. What kind of, frankly, I think it's the preventative side too, is what controls are in place that they are using, a number of which you both have mentioned already. But in addition, I think the magnitude at scale, at the magnitude of how large are these money movement, amounts and degrees, as well as frequency. Okay. And what are they doing about it?
All right. Good point.
And by the way, I would say in the reviews that the SEC are going through now, that is either the number one or the number two issue that the SEC audits of these firms are looking at now is what is their cybersecurity protection? They really are looking at that.
So, and I saw some announcements about this. And oh, by the way, let's get the poll up of the whatever. Do we have 2 good ideas? Andrew, how many we got? We got 4. Put that poll up there. It is up. Please go vote in the poll for the good ideas. Again, these are 10% tips, not the tip on how to solve all the problems. By the way, do we have any questions that someone wants to audibly say in this room right now? Happy to, some have come in via here. I've got more questions, but I'm happy to take people in the room. Anyone? No one's got a question. By the way, when we're done with this, by the way, those people watching here, also join our live stream at armorblocks.com. It's a different live stream than the the Crowdcast one, because we're going to do an open discussion about this very topic, and we want everybody in this room involved in this heavily. So we want essentially your real world experiences of this topic. So please be prepared for that as well. Let me go, what was the other question? Oh, here, this question that came in from Dan. I don't know which Dan this is, actually. But Dan, if you want to say which Dan it is, please pipe up in the chat room. When it comes to phishing attacks, this is just a generic question. What steps can we take to reduce risk? We talked about, the pause and wait. Are there some other big things we should be doing? Emilio, what do you think?
Definitely protect your accounts with MFA, right? So that your credential stuffing or theft is taken away, and then create a culture of awareness that people can just easily report suspicious messages. Make it open, so even if it's just an actual official email, they don't get reprimanded for it.
In fact, this good idea is just currently voted up the most, and Andrew, maybe you can tell me who put this in. Reward and thank employees that correctly report dangerous phish attempts, not necessarily training. Is there a feedback loop, like I've reported it, you let them know, what do you do?
We do.
And how does it work? I've reported something, how does that come back to me?
So users click on a button, that gets sent to a team, and then there's a feedback via Slack that says, hey, because of this and this and this was actually a bad message, or this is a legit message because of this and this and this. So either way, we tell them.
Yeah.
And I would just say, look, it's so incredibly important. Like, the breach is never the point of true failure. Like, always the problem can get much, much bigger after that initial compromise.
Right.
And so incentivizing employees to report not just when they received it, but when they fell for it, like, just equally as important.
Oh, yes. I will tell you a very funny story is that I was about to record an episode of the CISO Series podcast in person with the CISO of Atlassian. And just at the moment I was about to hit the record button, a call from my sister came in, and she had an issue where she accidentally clicked a button. And it wasn't a financial transfer, but it was, and I said, you're in luck. I happen to have two CISOs here to give you advice. And essentially the advice was, contact your IT department, tell them exactly what you do. Because she was the common person who goes, I feel like an idiot. I don't want to say anything. And that's the good thing to do at that point. That's a really, really good point. What about this one? This other one came in. By the way, do we know who sent that first one in? Oh, Chris. Thank you very much, Chris. You could have just made some noise right here. Here's the other one that I like here is enforce signing keys within an organization and block unsigned messages. Is that even conceivable, though? Because you're going to get a lot of unsigned messages. Yeah. That's not. Within a domain. Yeah, that's if someone.
Right.
So, but could you do it? Let's say that. Let's say you have a series of partners that these, we are only doing financial transfers with these X number of companies. Is that conceivable?
I mean, there's something about asking people if you create more if-then statements in people's daily lives, I don't think it will actually add simplicity to it. It will make it more complicated. So there's other ways, in my opinion. Even if it's just a trusted network of partner, you guys can chime in. You probably deal with it more than I do, but I still think that if I get 200 emails that are unsigned and 20 that need to be signed, I'm still asking my users a whole lot.
Yeah, it's just too much of a hurdle. Is there another, it's an interesting concept. I like it because it would.
But if you really look at it, DKIM is actually a way of signing your domain name, right? So at least you can protect your own domain from being used for phishing with that.
Maybe hit me. DKIM, let's literally, this is basic, foundational security. DKIM would be one. What are some other issues?
SPF. Right. I think what's that the other one?
Maybe you can tell us what's on your requirements list.
So we detect whether they have DKIM or SPF configured. I mean, you can look at DNSSEC and things to try and prevent domain hijacking is another one. Do they have read-write permissions with their registrar?
What about, do you do pen testing?
Not in a formal way, informally. We don't ever cross that crucible and go into the network, but we are effectively performing an attack surface monitoring exercise, looking for ways in.
Okay. That's it. Oh, let me just see if I think we have a few more questions. Again, anyone in this room wants to raise their hand. We're going to be talking. I don't know if I fully understand this. This comes from Jeff Reich. How do we handle subrogation with third-party risk? Is there attribution? So I guess it's really the third-party risk issue.
Well,
How are you
yeah.
managing third-party risk?
Well, it's often the insurance company that does this for you.
Yeah.
So, for example, if one of our clients has suffered a loss, but it was as a result of a third party's security failure that's not our customer, in any insurance contract, you're subrogating your claim to the insurance company.
Right.
And we can go after that third party and go after their insurance policy because they're at least partially, if not wholly, liable for it.
So, wait, let me see if I fully understand that. If if there's a SolarWinds case and I fall victim to it,
Yeah.
where does my insurance kick in, not kick in?
So the insurance company will cover your loss, right?
Okay.
If it's covered under the policy, you're going to get a check. However, if the loss was as a result of a third party's failure, like they have some sort of legal liability, the insurance company can elect to go after them, to sue them to recover.
It's like car insurance, right? Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like car insurance. So that's a pretty fundamental role that insurance companies play.
How do you get into this? How do you get involved in this in third parties?
Well, first of all, I mean, I do think, well, we don't directly because
Yeah,
they're the outside providers who are doing it, whether it's the insurance companies that are working directly with our registered investment advisors or whether it's what we're doing with armor blocks. But in either case, many of these breaches are exactly that from third parties. And so then it really is up to them to go to their insurance providers. We're not intervening directly.
Yeah, and then if you're a software vendor, you have to make sure you have third-party claims added to your own insurance policy.
Yeah.
What do you think? Here's an interesting 10% idea that came in, and I'm going to ask you if you think it could fall into the area of bad idea too. But I like the creativity.
Security is a very fine line.
Look, I like the creativity idea. I will also say this: many good ideas come from bad ideas too. But I think this has got an interesting bent to it. Get rid of incoming email for people who don't really need it. Example, customer support uses Zendesk. Why do they need external available email? What do you think about that?
I mean, you're removing a way for them to communicate with other members of the company, right? Like, there's
Maybe it could be via Slack.
but
Okay.
I mean, there's just one way, right? So how do you share maybe things over with colleagues that you can't share over Slack?
Now, again, communications is communication, but Slack environments are far more secure than email environments in general, because email was never designed to be a secure platform. Has anyone got organizations here in this room where so much of their communications has just moved off of email, where they live in a Slack environment or something like that? Dutch, you're like that in your environment? Yes? And Tyson, you're nodding your head as well. Anyone else? Is it more or less? I would just thumbs up and thumbs down. Do you think this has improved situations? Same thing, Bill, you're saying it's improved, or you don't really know, Tyson? You don't know. But Bill, your thumbs up, you're saying it's improving. Can we get a mic to Bill over here? Whoops, watch yourself. Hold on. I'm interested to know what your thoughts on this are. And we have, we're about 9 minutes out. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, David, I'm not convinced that it's better, but it's not on email. So.
What does that make it better or worse? I don't even know.
I'm not 100% convinced, right? I don't know how many Slack channels sometimes, so.
All right.
It can be too distracting. It's not a great source of.
It may be better than email is my point, but I'm not sure it's the answer.
I'm going to go back to the Department of Yes. Like, I actually think it's not a horrible idea. If an employee doesn't need access to email, go to the principal.
Well, it's in the
privilege.
10% tip. I think
go.
it was a good idea. Who actually submitted that, Andrew?
But the question is, how does HR communicate with that employee then?
Slack.
Slack?
Slack? Yeah, I mean,
Every person, I don't know.
my wife works at Oracle, and like 95% of her communications is Slack, so she's living in that world. Do we know who sent that in? No? We're going to find out eventually. Anyways, or whatever, speak up in the chat room if that was you.
The only other thing I would add to that is, as we're working with clients with armor blocks, they can identify the number of employees they have, but all of a sudden, as we're starting to get, because we have tiered pricing, all of a sudden they start to identify some underutilized or unattended email boxes. And I think just having too many of them and not having the controls over them, and you probably would echo that, I think is part of the problem.
So if they're not using it, you could shut it down. Is that even conceivable?
We could make it that way. How about be a department of yes, right? But right now the way we work is like everything that is HR related or mandatory training is all over email because we don't think of Slack as like a permanent retention tool. So we wouldn't be able to do it.
You wouldn't? Okay. Yeah, it's I like the creativity of the idea.
It's not a
Kudos
bad idea.
to this. That was actually entered in twice. You told me there were 4, but there was actually only 3. You entered one in twice, Andrew. All right. Let's see.
It was a really, really good idea.
Well, we're getting close to the end here, and I also want some of. I'm just going to ask this very open-ended question: what have I not been asking about on this issue of the economics of email fraud that we should have discussed? And this, by the way, we can tease this now and bring this up in our salon later. What do you think, Josh?
Look, maybe one surprising thing that many people may not be aware of is going back to the point of the breach is not the point of failure, is that even if you have wired money out of your bank accounts, you can get it back. And we're not your average insurance company per se, but we've recovered over 56% of the funds stolen by our customers since the company was founded, like tens of millions of dollars. You can go and we have direct access to communicate to the fraud departments at
Let me ask
banks.
you, what's the
please.
longest period of time that you've gotten money back?
The longest period, like in terms of how much time went by?
Yeah.
So someone reported the loss 3 weeks after it was lost.
You got it back?
We got it back.
That's impressive.
Because of the way this works, right? Typically, criminal hackers will gain access to a bank account illicitly. They'll defraud multiple companies at once who are all depositing money into that account, typically in the US. They're trying to get it out of the US as fast as they can. They know they're going to get caught, so it has a finite life. So if we can get a request in on behalf of our customer to reclaim the funds, it's first in, first out, like in terms of the requests. So we can often recover the money prior to others, if that makes sense. So speed matters. Ideally, we'd like you to tell us within a day, within hours, days, prior to weeks, but it can be done.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know if it's common knowledge or not, but for those organizations that maybe don't have that in their policy, the FBI also can help with that as well.
Okay. And I'm going to throw it to you, Scott, and because we're going to sum up in just a moment. Is there anything we haven't hit in today's discussion, like, and again, we can bring this up again in the salon as well, that people should know?
Well, I just think it's for smaller businesses, and that's a lot of what we're doing with dealing with our clients. I think they just believe that their human interaction and their business processes are sufficient to protect themselves, and they don't understand the nature of what they're up against. I think that's probably true across a range of industries with the ability of to move money pretty easily and get compromised, and frankly create existential threats for some of them. So I think that's a big part of what we got to be thinking about going forward. Is it's not just the big enterprises that are well trained that understand the nature of the risk. We've got to figure out how to educate smaller enterprises too.
Excellent point. All right, we have just essentially about 4 minutes left, so let's do a quick summary, and I'm going to go down the road. We'll end with you last. Emilio, well, first of all, the question I always ask everybody: are you hiring? So make sure you all have an answer to that one as well. But summarize in terms of what you want everyone to know walking away from today regarding how they can improve their understanding of the economics of email threats, and how they should be addressing it. That, we understand the standards of, MFA like that, but what they should be thinking about, they may not be thinking about. Which is kind of a repeat of the question I asked earlier, but I just realized. But just summarize, like in terms of make sure you're moving in this direction.
I would say, I think maybe, and I think it sort of pairs well with my answer to like, what have we not asked yet, is a lot of times companies, when they think about email security, is more so of like, how do we get the users to never click on anything bad? And they make sure that they're punishable by corporate policy or by training that they can't do it. So the question that maybe we should have asked is, have phishing training and like simulations of they actually reduce the BECs and the phishing and the smishing. Second, how are you instilling a culture, right? And I think that's my message outside of the MFA and controls and everything is, how do you build a culture of openness and transparency where people know where to go to, who to go to, when, and that nothing will happen to them if it was a good thing or a bad thing, and that security is thinking, to your point, that the initial point of compromise should not take down the whole company. So like think with them and work with them on the processes, maybe create that process gap that you said around when you get the email, it'll take 10 minutes before you do it, right? So work with them.
The gap it concept. So just 1 minute, just summarize like what you want everyone to know. And if they were coming to Coalition.
Sure, yeah, look, I mean, I think it's increasing, the community is embracing that this is a risk management problem. And so the framework we use is you can do three things with risks. You can accept them, you can mitigate them, or you can transfer them, which is, of course, what insurance does. And by definition, you cannot mitigate all of them. Like, it's not a linear line that goes to zero. It looks like a diminishing returns curve where you could have an infinite security budget and hire all the Emilios in the world, and bad things can still happen.
Right.
Whatever you haven't transferred or mitigated, you have accepted. And so a lot of people ask, like, how many people have insurance? And I jokingly say all of them. It's just some self-insure and others purchase it from someone else.
I want to echo something that Dutch Schwartz said in a presentation I saw yesterday at ISSA. He played a sort of a game with everybody of like making decisions on security, and two groups that made the same exact decisions. One group got breached, the other one didn't. You can literally make the same decision as someone else, and one can fail and one can't. That's the bizarre thing of it all. This is like not true in any other environment. Like if two people are heading towards each other and you both make the same decision to avoid each other and you avoid each other, you're not going to get hit. But it doesn't work that way in getting attacked as well. So that's a thing to keep in mind, and that's why insurance, no matter how good you are, it's going to happen. It's all right, closing comment. We literally have less than a minute. Let's give your last thoughts, what you want everyone to understand and know.
Well, I've been emphasizing this issue around smaller enterprises need to become more aware of it, but I also think that they've got to recognize that it's not just about training people, it's not just about processes, but they need supporting technology, like what we're doing with Armor Blocks, supporting technology that really can help catch and prevent and identify a lot of that. I think that's going to go a long way towards mitigating some of the challenges that many of these firms face, and frankly, start to think around risk management and not just about growing their firms and all that kind of stuff.
All right, Andrew, we are not going to go through those final slides, so don't bother. We're not going to do it. I'm just going to wrap up the show right now. I want to thank my guest from the far left here, this Emilio Escobar. He's a CISO over at Datadog. Oh, by the way, are you all hiring? Can I just assume?
Yes.
Everyone's hiring.
Yes.
Who isn't? No, are you hiring?
We hired 18,000 people during the pandemic, so yes, they're hiring.
Yes. Everyone's hiring all the time. So if you're looking for a job, go talk to them. Anyways, I'm sorry, Emilio Escobar, thank you very much. Joshua Motta, who's the co-founder and CEO of Coalition Insurance, and also to my immediate left is Scott Slater, who's the VP of Practice Management and Consulting for Fidelity Investments. I want to thank everybody who is in the chat room, everybody in this room as well. Please stick around for that. For those of you watching us online, please go to armorblocks.com if you want to see the rest of the show, because we're going to have a big open discussion about this, about real-world experiences on email compromise, and I want everyone's feedback on that as well. So please, please participate if you can on that. If you go to armorblocks.com, you'll see a link right there at the top of the screen to register for the event, and there'll be an option to register for the virtual version, and that's how you can see that. And so you can essentially jump into the middle of the show. Anyways, thank you very much, everybody, for participating. Let's give a round of applause for everyone on stage. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, everyone in the chat room. Take us out, Andrew. Good job.